that ordinance out to all the jurisdictions, to the public. We will have a public hearing. If the Planning Commission approves an ordinance for you to consider, it will be brought to you. And then you'll have the final say as a Board of Commissioners as to whether that ordinance should be allowed to move forward. That ordinance will create parameters, guidelines, conditions, management expectations for what projects have to meet. And I don't have any answers yet or any idea of what all those things are going to be. That's part of the ordinance creation process. What the public really needs to know is, as a county, in any jurisdiction, we cannot exclude any legitimate land uses from a zoning ordinance. The minute you begin to exclude or try to deny any use, your ordinance will be challenged and you'll have it thrown out, and then you'll lose your leverage as a government when those projects are allowed to come forward. There's one of the townships down in Van Buren County right now is fighting, they've lost a lawsuit over a solar field. And even though literally 80% of the township was against it, it was a legitimate use and they had no other places for it. So they're going to have a solar project within their township. You can't exclude projects. So we'll come back with it when it's prepared. I don't expect that you'll see it before the end of the year, maybe the beginning of 2024. Hopefully we have something for the public and the townships to consider a little bit before then as we start to schedule those public hearings. You're going to get a lot of public comments today, I'm sure. Listen to those, and if you have any questions, I'm planning on coming back next week and we can address those, but I just wanted to let you kind of know what the process is going to be. And I do not have any applications in the office yet. I don't have any ordinances yet, so we don't have any of those specific answers that people are maybe hoping to get this week.
Okay, so no projects on the table, no projects have been submitted, and nothing will be considered until the ordinance is in place, which sounds like you just said 2024.
The beginning of 2024, and when consumers went to Johnstown, we've advised them that we would envision it would be early in 2024 before we'd be ready to go.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
So, thank you. I have to get back. I'm the only one here this week, so if you have any questions afterward, feel free to come down to the office.
Thank you, Jim. Additional public comment?
Good morning. Good morning, Rich. Rich Temke, Director, Barry County Community Mental Health. I come this morning just to give a couple pieces of information. So what I'm having passed around there is our mobile crisis team we've had for a little while now. We've expanded that. It's pretty much available 24/7. It's a team that goes out and meets individuals where they're at in the community, provide mental health and substance use treatment, hopefully get their needs met and, rather than hospitalization or something of that nature. So we're just trying to get the word out on that, do a little PR. The second thing I'd like to bring to your attention is that Saturday, October 14th, our veterans case manager or veterans coordinator has linked with Moveville and the VA in Battle Creek, so they are sponsoring VA eligibility enrollment, disability claims, and I think there's free ice cream. So that's October 13th at 3 p.m. in Moveville. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Additional public comment?
Hi, good morning.
If you could tell us your name and your township, please.
I'm Karen Strayer. Thank you for the reminder, Orangeville Township. And so I'm here to do what I always do. I'm here to pray. So, Father God, we enter into your courts with thanksgiving and into your presence with praise. You are providing so many opportunities for people to change their minds and do what's right. So, Lord, we repent. We repent for our compromise in not allowing your word to penetrate our hearts, for our language that doesn't honor you. For your word says life and death are in the power of the tongue. And Jesus said, the words of your mouth reveal the condition of your heart. So we also repent for placing our children on the altar of sacrifice and by not protecting them from things they ought not to see or hear, for choosing leaders that do not honor you when your word is clear about the kind of leaders we should choose in Titus specifically, or we will get what we deserve and what we have asked for in that. So Lord, we have banished you from both the public and private places. So now, Lord, I invite you, and I, along with other believers, we invite you, Jesus, into this space. Holy Spirit, we ask you to heal us of those hurts that cause us to dishonor you and seek the easy way instead of the right way. Give those who know you and love you boldness, courage, strength, and your protection. Because your word says, be wise as serpents and as gentle as doves. So let us stand in both of those so that we give you the honor and the glory that you deserve. May we seek your wisdom to know who is for us and who is not. May we speak the truth in love. Please reveal the folly of our culture that is not new. Even in your word, we have seen this in history. May we not repeat that history. Lord, change minds and hearts. Move pens to do your will. As you say, that the government is on your shoulders, as you created everything, even government. Your word says that your word will not return void, but will be accomplished for everything you have planned. That no weapon formed against us will prosper, Isaiah 54:17. That I lift my eyes to the hills, from where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let my foot be moved. He who keeps me will not slumber. Behold, he keeps Israel, will neither slumber or sleep. The Lord is my keeper. The Lord is the shade on my right hand. And submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous man runs to it, and is safe.
Thank you for your comments.
Is that it? 3 minutes? Oh, darn. Okay. Lord, you know the rest. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I just want to hand these out. This is from another friend of mine that could not be here due to having a job.
Morning, Kelly.
What, are you insinuating we don't, Kelly?
Some of us are a little bit more flexible.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, I am one of those many people that are here on behalf of Kelly Case, Baltimore Township, by the way.
Name and where you're from, please. Name and township, please.
Kelly Case, Baltimore
Okay.
Township,
Thank you. For our clerk.
for the solar. I'm here on behalf of the master plan, which I feel the amount of neglect that was put into putting it together. We have heard from 2 different townships that we went and spoke to all last week. Both the people that were selected for the master plan were not either contacted or were not asked any information regarding it. We also heard at the planning committee that it was kind of a rush deal. They had over 100 pages of documents to look through, but they had to hurry up and vote on it. For the last year, I've been concerned about the sale of this land due to how close it is to my in-laws and to us. We met with consumers 2 months ago in Johnstown Township. They answered many questions. Some of them themselves had no idea on the answers of the questions that we asked. I know we need a plan going forward on this alternate energy. According to Jim, and your governor is now demanding that she, in fact, might take your rights away as a township, as a county, and give it to the state. Only you guys who were elected know what's best for this county, not her. The county that you were elected to make the best decisions for. We are asking you to revisit the plan, and when you're thinking about what is best for Berry County, think about the people that voted you in. We live here because of its beauty, and those of us that farm its land, we don't do it for the money, trust me. We do it for our families, we do it for those that we supply food and we feed to. Without our farmers, there's no food. When your government controls the food, they control the people. There are so many options around this state. There's so many brownfields that already exist. Let's figure out safe disposal on these panels. Let's put an ordinance together so that when the time comes, we're able to stand up to the demands of this government. I am asking you as elected commissioners who all run underneath the Republican platform to really think about what your constituents want. Bruce Campbell, you represent me and my family. My family has farmed that land for over 100 years. I'm asking you to please consider what we can do next to help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Stephanie Hester, Castleton Township. I'd like to continue what Kelly said about requesting that you revisit the master plan. In revisiting it, I ask that you take input from the citizens, from the township boards, from the people who live here and who you represent, whose properties will be next to these alternative energy farms. It shouldn't be fully decided by some third party that develops plans for municipalities all over the country or all over the state. It should be decided right here. So we do ask that you not approve this master plan and that it does get revisited by locals, by input from all parties locally. All of us make a lot of sacrifices to live out here in this beautiful country. We drive extra hours, like hundreds of hours every year to live out here in beautiful nature. We spend thousands of extra dollars beyond people who live in the cities to live out here in the beautiful wildlife habitat, farms, nature, quiet, peaceful, beautiful. Not next to fields of glass and steel. If we want that, we can move to the cities. But we don't need to bring the glass and steel out here to the places that don't have it. One of the things that consumers said during the question and answer period out at Johnstown is that, you know, they've got no choice because there's a mandate to be 90% renewable by the year 2040, and there's pressure to make that even sooner. Well, first off, that's ridiculous. Second off, we didn't have any input on that. Why should we have any input on solving it? And thirdly, it's just plain not our problem. Not here. Not here. In society today, I think we have developed this habit of taking on problems that aren't ours. We have no responsibility for. We had no part in creating the problem, and we really don't have any responsibility in trying to solve this problem. So don't shoulder the problem of some ridiculous mandate that was made by who knows where, probably another third-party organization that's creating things like this all over the place to who knows what their goals are. We have our own problems here. We don't need more. We don't need more division. What we need is coming together, making the decisions for our community ourselves, and not taking on the crazy problems of this world. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Stanton, and my husband David's family has had property in Assyria, Johnstown, and Maple Grove for over 100 years. To us, the purpose of saving our Berry County farmlands is to maintain a long business environment for agriculture in Berry County and to preserve the rural character and scenic attributes of the county and to enhance important environmental benefits and to maintain quality of life for Berry County residents. The economic importance of farmland and agriculture in Berry County is valued and economically important. It provides essential and irreplaceable basis for production of dairy, livestock, hay, grains, vegetables, fruit, nursery, and greenhouse crops. Agricultural land in Berry County also supports a broad range of agricultural dependent businesses such as farm machinery, sales, maintenance, sale of farm supplies, fuel suppliers, grain dealers, all of which contribute significantly to local and regional economies. In addition, it is economic importance agricultural land in Berry enhances the overall quality of life for all county residents by providing scenic beauty, preserving open space, maintaining rural character, promoting hunting opportunities, preserving cultural heritage, as well as protecting valued environmental benefits such as watershed quality and preservation of wildlife habitat. Berry County is a recreation destination of Michigan with hundreds of lakes and major rivers and streams which promoted the construction of many vacation homes. Our farmland is an important aspect in attracting vacationers to the area as well as major contributors to quality of life of Berry County's permanent residents. Land suitable for farming is irreplaceable, a natural resource with soil and characteristics that have been enhanced by labor of generations of farming families in Berry County. When such land is lost to other development uses that do not require special characteristics of agriculture, critical community resources are permanently lost to the citizens of the county. These words I have just spoken were pulled from your very own Berry County Farm and Preservation Ordinance, written December 10th, 2002, and amended April 2016. I hope you choose to stand by the words you have put into that ordinance and stop these solar fields from moving into our beautiful Berry County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelly Lenz. I'm from Maple Grove Township. I'm a fifth-generation farmer, and my children are the sixth. We grow hay, lease part of our land to grow soybeans, and raise cattle. We do our best to take care of our land. My family fought to save our farm during the Great Depression. They even had to sell some of it to be able to keep the rest. Now it is my turn to fight to save the beautiful farmland in all of Berry County, but specifically Maple Grove Township. For years, we were paid by the government through the CRP program to preserve the habitat of different wildlife. Now the government is selling out the same habitat and farmland that we spent years trying to preserve to put in solar fields. This will devastate the ecosystem, the wildlife habitat. This needs to stop. All across the country, we are pushing wildlife out of their habitats in the name of progress, and they have nowhere else to find shelter and food. We are already having extensive crop damage from deer. What is going to happen when they are fenced out of the place that they eat and live right now? I can tell you even more crop damage will occur. What we hear is that if someone sells their property to consumers, they can do whatever they want with the land. Our own government has made it nearly impossible for farmers to purchase land. There are farmers out there constantly looking for more land to farm. The tax incentives and the deep pockets of a company like Consumers make it very hard, if not downright impossible. In addition, let's face it, Consumers has very little concern for the residents of our county. They just want to make more money. The money that is being given to consumers by our government is our taxpayer dollars. Residents should have a say, or at the very least a vote, to have our voices heard about how this affects us. If this goes through, we, the taxpayers, are going to have to buy electricity from our own investment. We are paying them so they can make more money. I highly doubt we will see any decrease in our electricity bills. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a plan on how to dispose of these panels when the time comes? And the time will come. I'm not against solar power. We need to find alternative ways to generate electricity to fight global warming, but using valuable farmland to do so is going to harm our county in the end. There has to be other options to place the eyesores other than using thousands of acres in Berry County alone. I'm begging the Planning Commission to do the right thing for Berry County and to vote down the experimental solar farms and protect the rights of the taxpayers of Berry County as you are elected to do. Do not let the almighty dollar and the big companies have their way again. Please listen to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Good morning. I'm Geneva Woodmansey from Baltimore Township out by Dowling. And some of our property butts up to Johnstown where they're proposing solar farms. I've chosen to join my husband when we were married and to live here where he grew up, his father grew up, and his father grew up, and farther down than that. Now my grandchildren are here and they enjoy our family country home and our property. And I want them and their kids and the kids after them to be able to enjoy the birds, the wildlife, the dirt roads, the trees, corn and soybean fields to play in, creeks, the ponds, and just plain old weeds. To be able to walk down our country roads as a family without lots of traffic, and let alone the noise from that traffic. This is just some of the reasons that we live in our beautiful Berry County. A friend and I took a trip over to Convis Township to see these solar fields they're doing, and I sure hope that some of you get to go see them if you haven't already. It's devastating. I was appalled at what these people are having to look at on their daily commutes to work or even out their front windows. I've seen many homes for sale, and some people had left their house before their houses were even sold. How can that be a good thing for any county? I also took a video of all the equipment and the supplies that needed to be at these sites where the solar panels are going to be going. And now while at the Johnstown meeting with Consumers Energy, she said that there would be trees and berms and that we would not be able to see these panels from the road, and that is absolutely not true. There were full-grown cornfields and we could still see the panels over those. It's just not possible. And the glare. It was a really cloudy day and there was a big glare off the panels. And I can't even imagine on a fully sunny day how that would be. Also, I can't imagine the time and the energy and the costs that we will have to entail to keep our roads decent. We have decent roads in Berry County. To have all this traffic coming and going and all these big trucks, and we need to realize it is not something that can just be undone when we learn it not as good a deal as we thought it was when it was sold to us. I've heard nothing on what they will do or how they will clean up or restoration of the land if something goes wrong, and I'm very concerned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Sherry Babcock from Johnstown Township. I'm the clerk there. I just wanted to give the commissioners this letter that we submitted to the planning and zoning meetings when the master plan was going on, and just reinforce our concern with involvement on the ordinance that's going to, for that master plan. We were involved, we had a trustee involved with the master plan and some of the surveys that were going on, and that whole participation basically got completely cut off. They were not involved at all with the master plan, even though they put in time and effort to be part of that. And we, as a township, don't want to be eliminated from this process. We are concerned, with the decommissioning of these and those things, the setbacks, but the equal distribution also between townships. Our township is going to be greatly impacted. And we do have a lot of people concerned, and it is difficult for those people. There are actually some areas in our township that are going to have those solar panels both in front of them and in back of them. So we really want to be part of this process. And so that's what I'm here today, is give you the letter that we previously submitted to them and hope that the township has a say in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Time's already running? I haven't even got here. Gary White, Castleton. On September 12th, I submitted 3 FOIAs. I'm on a different topic, by the way. When I came back, it was on the facilities ad hoc committee, it came back that the documents don't exist. It was simple public notices for meetings and minutes. The other two had to do with information regarding those. It concerns me that the ad hoc committee on facilities does not want public comment. They don't want to have partners of the people. But, quote, this came from the banner. As a business owner, I can make decisions, snap my fingers, and push things on. As a commissioner, I don't make those decisions independently, he said, which is your chairman. It takes planning, it takes quotes and estimates, and working with community partners to figure out what's best for some of these spaces, and that stuff just takes time. Community partners and working for, this is another statement he made back in the commissioners meeting, that doing the business of the county should be doing the business with the people, of the people, for the people. It's becoming clear and obvious that the public doesn't really matter. You've heard numerous comments today on the solar. It's going to be interesting how that turns out. But if you don't believe in the voice of the people and you just sit here and listen, I do believe I've heard the comment, we hear you, we're listening to you, but I think in this article, and you've said that quite a bit, Bob, that has been parroted by the chairman. Well, you can take words and they still don't mean nothing if you don't really act on them. The facilities committee took on the mental health building, it says here, once again without public input at that, and then brought in here, and then it's just what we're going to do. Earlier this year, you made the COA comply with the Open Meetings Act, and they have posted meetings. I'm going to guess they take minutes. They welcome public comment. But your facilities ad hoc committee does not. I just find this truly amazing if you take your oath of office seriously that you don't want the public comment. You want to wait and have this plan come in, then it comes into the COW meeting, then it's done and approved by the COW with very little public comment. My extensions are to October 2nd for the other two pieces of information, or other two FOIAs I have for what's going on with the facilities, and then the communications, I guess, with other partners, but nothing for the community and the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning, Courtney.
Morning. Good morning. Courtney Zinni, Berry County Commission on Aging Executive Director. So I just wanted to come in front of you guys today to provide a couple of updates and to let you know that more updates are coming soon. The steering committee meeting that was originally scheduled for next week has actually been rescheduled to tomorrow, Wednesday, September 20th at 2 p.m. at the Commission on Aging building. A revised notice was posted downstairs and in the COA lobby last Friday. It was also posted on the county's website and shared on the COA Facebook page. Unfortunately, I did miss the deadline to get it in the reminder. Representatives from Berry County Adult Foster Care and Assisted Living Facilities and myself will be meeting this Friday to discuss the concerns they have with the location of the new senior center facility. While we may not be able to completely alleviate every concern, I'm certain that we will be able to brainstorm new and innovative ways to support those providing services to Berry County seniors. I'm also excited to announce that I'll be back next week to present the conceptual drawing of the new senior center facility. The building committee started this process last November and have worked hard to create a facility that will support our services and future growth. Once that presentation is made, we'll begin hosting community conversation events to share our vision with the sectors of the community, and also to receive input into the services and activities that the community would like to see at their senior center. I do have to run today, but if there's any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, we'll be back next week with a further update, certainly more details. But if you have specific questions or something you'd like addressed at next week's meeting, please let me know. And that's for the public as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Just say one thing, I'm still looking for those minutes, I'm not getting those currently.
I've been sending them to the commissioners' emails.
Is everyone else receiving them?
I believe so.
I've been sending the minutes as well as the notice for the next meeting.
All right, I'll check my
Okay.
spam file.
Okay, I'm sorry. I will send you all of those though today.
I appreciate it.
Additional public comment?
Hello. Candace Johnson, Apple Township. Karen Strayer started with a prayer. And I think just in building on that, we've got a zoning issue that really cuts to the heart of this agricultural county. We're gonna have supply chain issues, but not in Berry County because of our agriculture. If we go back to what is a solar farm, it takes me back to Genesis 1. On the fourth day, God created the sun to govern the day, and the moon and the stars to govern by night. So God created this earth to be a solar farm. And who are we to take agricultural land and say that we are God? Another thought I have is if we really want to know what a farm is, we could go to any kindergarten class in Berry County and ask them what is a farm. They have cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, sheep, dogs, old MacDonald, right? Our kids know the simplicity of what a farm is, and the complexity is what the grown-ups make it into. My third thought on the zoning issue is we need to ask farmers, and we've had farmers here telling us what a farm is. And we need to have every farmer in here letting us know just what they do and what they contribute to our beautiful county. We live in Berry County because it's agricultural, because it's simple, because there is common sense where there is simplicity. We live in a common sense county. And there's been also the thought of, bringing it to the people. It should go to the ballot then. What is a solar farm? A solar farm is the earth that God created. What's going to happen with these panels to our agriculture? Who's going to feed our grandchildren? Who's going to feed our great-grandchildren and all the children to come? And how about we stop, not me, we, but how about government stops paying farmers not to farm and pay them to farm and end hunger in Berry County? There are so many issues here, and I just think we need to go back to our Creator who created the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, the plants, the vegetation, the animals, and let us live with our environment rather than fight against it. Thank
you
you.
for your comments. Additional public comment?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Name and where you're from?
I'm Susan Barnard. I live in the township of Hastings.
Thank you.
Don't you hate it when you're really hungry in these restaurants around town? Their hours keep changing. They're not open. I'm not going to say it's because of solar farms. That would be a stretch. And my restaurant won't be directly affected by what you want to do with these farms in Berry County. But if boards and committees across this country continue to choose solar farms, my business will become obsolete. There's a reason KFC isn't here anymore. Some could say that's lack of employment. Chicken's getting harder to get a hold of. For 18 years, I've had a business in town. And for 18 years, I've waited for a commissioner to come in and ask us what we're hearing, what we're seeing around. I see probably a lot more people on a weekly basis than any of you, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. And I was raised by a man who taught me when I take a job, I better be able to perform it to the best of my abilities and tap into every single resource available. I didn't hold my breath when this new committee got elected that you would come into my establishment and find out what the pulse of this community is. But if you utilize your resources and go in and talk to these businesses in town, you'll have a good idea of what your community wants to do. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Ted Peterson. I live on the Dowling Road. Consumers Powers has purchased 360 acres across the road from me, 160 acres next to me. I would ask each one of you, how would you like to get up in the morning, look out your window, drive down the driveway, look for a mile of solar panels to your south, half a mile of solar panels to your east. When you look out your east windows, how would each one of you like to do that? What do you think this would do to land, your value of your property? More than that, both these properties drain onto my farm. And what will these panels do? Won't they stop water absorption into the ground? It's going to run off, won't it? Another thing, we have a great deer problem in our area. What's going to happen when you take all this farmland out of productivity for crops, fence it off, and where's these deer going to go? They're going to come to the land that's right next to it. All I would ask that let's preserve our farmland. Let's look out and see the crops and not the solar panels. So thank you.
Additional public comment?
Amber Holtrust, Hastings Charter. I didn't intend to speak today, but listening to these people, I just prepared a few notes, so I won't be anywhere near 3 minutes. But I just wanted to say to you commissioners that there's some interesting things that I heard listening to these people. Other townships must be pushing back against these solar fields to some extent because the governor wants to take control over these ordinances and approvals. So there's certainly other opportunities to learn from what other townships are doing. It's not a problem just for Berry County. Also, Mr. McManus, maybe he was mistaken. He said he doesn't have any applications for projects, but I just saw a good handful of people here talking about a specific project. So I'm unclear on whether or not there's actual plans in place to put in this solar farm for certain. But for commissioners, what you can do going forward, I just wanted to put in a little constructive message is everybody has rights, right? The property owner has the right to sell their property to consumers. But you have the right also as commissioners to protect us and tell consumers that they need safe parameters around these solar fields between homes, that they need a safe disposal procedures, that they need to amend soil after so that it's farmable again. So I really think that in your seats going forward, the action item is how do we make, I mean, look, it's coming for us one way or another. If it's not solar panels this year, in 2 years, they're gonna want windmills. So what are the safe parameters in order to do this so that we can still maintain our integrity for our agriculture and our constituents? Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Additional public comment?
George Hubka, Johnstown Township. Good morning. Thank you to everyone who showed up this morning. I had an email that this was going to be on the, agenda to come here and talk about the solar farms. That's a misnomer in itself. If you think about what a farm is, it's already been talked about. I would in no way insult farmers by saying a bunch of glass panels is a solar farm in any way. You might even stretch it and say it's a solar field, but I don't know if I'd allow that. We have to ask, how can anyone be against hundreds of acres of glowing glass or glaring glass? Because it's going to save our environment. That's why we're for it. But we have to realize that we don't want it in Berry County. The issue was brought up earlier about crop production. If you think about the corn in production in this country, I have a newspaper article from the Farmers Advance this week that quotes 35% of the crops, the government subsidized corn crop, is diverted into alcohol, including what goes through the plant up at Woodbury, to come up with a subsidized American fuel for our cars. It's not, used for food. So we have plenty of food capacity if we stop the green stuff. The issue down here, it sounds like from what Mr. McManus said, we're behind the 8 ball. Why haven't we thought ahead and had this? We've seen around the state this has happened for years. The lady talked about getting windmills maybe. This won't happen in Berry County because if windmills were a practicality, they'd already be here. The consumers or whoever puts them up knows that this is not the best area for windmills. I think what you have to consider and work on is the master plan maybe need to be revisited from what we heard here this morning. My perception from reading in the paper, you had a group called Blue Zones, which was listed as a partner to Berry County or something in this. They evidently had influence on this master plan, but where was Joe Sixpack Citizen, yourself, these other people here, and their input in that master plan? It didn't exist. So you had some group from the outside coming in, promoting their things and getting this area to have the green world. The issue of a ordinance Jim talked about for the solar. It sounds like Consumers is on top of this already, probably helping write this ordinance for Berry County, and it amazes me, they're going to see it before we do. They'll see it before you see it, or their attorneys will anyway, I'll bet you, my life. And if they don't like it, the next day they'll submit one of those things to McManus for the part that can't be rejected, essential services. So we're probably screwed any way you go on this. Thank you.
He was assaulted. Additional public comment? Good morning. Why don't you have a chair?
Judge Vicki Alspaugh. I wanted to let the folks go ahead and have their comment, but so I didn't give you folks whiplash. As you know, Ms. Palmer has announced that she's leaving us after many, many years of service. And I wanted to let you folks know that this morning, Judge Doherty, Judge Skipper, and myself met, and we made a determination as to the appointment of Ms. Palmer's successor, and that's going to be Cindy White. She has been an employee of the county for some 27 years. I worked with her in the prosecuting attorney's office way back in the day when I was there. We're very confident that she has the skills and abilities that is needed to carry out the duties of the county clerk. And so she will, her appointment will take effect upon Ms. Palmer's retirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional public comment? We will move ahead with our agenda. Inez Straub. Good morning.
Good morning. I've asked Daisy to join me here today in case you had questions specific to the front of the court office. Daisy is our front of the court deputy, front of the court administrator, so she's my subject matter expert. Today we're in front of you asking that we renew our 4D cooperative reimbursement contract. It's a 5-year contract with the state for funding for the front of the court office. The amount that we requested from the state is the maximum amount that Berry County can request. So it requires the Board of Commissioners approval and our chair to sign this contract. I've collected signatures from our chief judge and the prosecuting attorney's office, or the prosecutor. So all that's left is to present it to you and recommend that you authorize it and sign it. If you have any questions?
Are these always done on a 5-year commitment?
They didn't used to be, but now they are. And they add additional language that allow them, the state, to have amendments and addendums. So I think back in 2017, we did an addendum to extend it for a couple of years.
Okay. And the $9,394,243, that's the maximum, is that probably not a guaranteed amount? That's what we're submitting for and hoping to get?
That's the maximum Berry County can request from the state.
Okay.
So as long as we request the maximum, then we will receive that from the state. But to align with the county budget cycle, we always submit our county budget, and the county then appropriates their portion, and which is 34%.
Okay. Questions for Inez or Daisy?
That's 34 of the 9 million? Or is that 34% comes from what?
34% is or the county is responsible for 34% of what we actually spend. So if we spend 100,000, the state reimburses 66, the county appropriates
34,000.
Yep.
Okay. Additional questions?
Yes.
Was there much of a raise from this contract to the last one, I would imagine?
Yes, there is. I don't have those budget figures in front of me, but certainly I can pull that information for you if you'd like.
Okay. Pretty easy. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of Title 4D Cooperative Reimbursement Program contract, which covers fiscal year starting 10/1/23 through 9/30/2028.
So moved.
Motion by Doster, support by Calton. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Next on our agenda is our budget proposal and our budget workshop. We're going to take about a 7 to 10 minute break before we dive into that, because I know that's going to be a lengthy discussion. So the board will stand at recess for about 10 minutes. All you caught. Budget.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, for just housekeeping purposes, you had a single sheet, had a couple of, it was a spreadsheet that was left on your desk this morning. My apology, I realized or was informed more precisely that a page was missing from the document that you received in the packet. It was in the previous versions, but when I copied the most recent. And that page would fall between page 20, it would effectively become page 25 of the document. Page 24, it's part of the 2024 staffing requests. Page 2020, or pardon me, page 24 is the first page of staffing requests. That would be the second page to that. Then leads into approved positions list is the next section. So when we do the final version or the next version of this, I'll be sure to insert that into there. My apology for that.
Michael, didn't an earlier version of the budget have 3 positions on the staffing request? Wasn't there an additional one for the clerk's office?
And that may be from, let me look and see if.
Because I thought that we had approved a position for the clerk's office here a few months ago, also contingent that we were going to look at an additional position for that in this year's budget.
I can take a look and I can do that now, or I can, at a later date, I'll fly spec those more closely.
Okay.
But on page 24 of the staffing requests, the page that is included in your document, not the missing one, in the middle, there is a deputy county clerk position listed.
And this is new, these are new, as a new position, not the one that we just
That's
provided?
correct. A
Okay.
great question.
Okay.
And I'll get into that a little bit, but the position that was approved is included in the budget as recommended, if you may. This would be a new position.
Okay, thank you.
The additional one. All right. I also, after we completed the budget amendment, I distributed to the board a highlighted version. There weren't a lot of changes, but if you'll recall, there was a version that updated the budget amendments. They didn't affect the 2024 part of the budget. They affected the 2023. I'm not going to be working off of the highlighted. I'm happy to talk about those changes if you'd like, but they are included in the version that you're looking at. So the version that you have in front of you, save for the one page, and I apologize for that, that was left out in error. Everything else is up to date and current with the budget amendments that have been approved so that you can see historical numbers, if you may, in real time, as well as then any changes that might have occurred. So before I move on, are there any quick questions about what I just kind of shared or anything else at the moment? All right. This is the proposed 2024 budget. It's the result of quite a bit of work and months of work, if you may, by departments, by my staff, and has brought us to this point. We did not receive any requests for appeals, budget appeals by departments. Had we had those, that would have occurred prior to me making the presentation. So we don't have any appeals. The budget is in the standard format that we've presented for previous budgets as well as budget amendments. And it's been out for, if you may, kind of public inspection for a little while now. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to take a look at it. I will move through the budget as in a bit of a quick pace, but I'll stop and answer any questions if there's a specific question that you might have. The first section is just a table of contents, followed then by the transmittal letter. And, oh, sorry, I thought somebody had just me hit the thing. So the transmittal letter is found on pages 1 through 5, and it's just a letter from me to the board and anyone that might read this, talking a little bit about high-level aspects of the budget. It's not intended to answer all the questions that exist in the budget, but hopefully give a little bit of insight into those areas that I think you maybe want to look at, that I want people to be aware of, and just helps ease folks into what's not necessarily a lengthy budget document, but I did sit down with Commissioner Tunison recently, and for somebody that hasn't done this for 30 years, there's a lot of numbers, right? I mean, it's what I do, and I take for granted that I can move through this really quickly, and just, I get that that's not what everybody's interest is, and so it tries to give a little bit for everybody, if you may, as they look at the budget, and if nothing else, create some opportunity to ask questions, and I get that that would be me. So following with others, I'm happy today or at any time. My door is always open to help folks, and if it's doing the same thing I did with Bob, I actually enjoy sitting down with folks and walking them through it. And that may not be a one-time subject either. I'm happy to help people work through it. So it hits on the general fund revenues and expenditures. Talks a little bit about wages. You're all familiar that wages have gone up. We had bargaining agreements in place through 2025. They still are. We have made some adjustments to those bargaining agreements to keep us more competitive, allow us to hopefully retain and attract staff. This budget includes all of those changes and adjustments. The new positions, in talking or answering Commissioner Doster's question, there were a number of new positions that were requested. Those are found on the pages later in the document. The way the budget is put together, I take and put together what I consider a continuation, if you may, or a status quo. So all positions that are currently funded are funded in the 2024 budget, including then any adjustments for cost of living, wages, fringe benefits, and the like. Any requests for new positions that currently don't exist in the budget, I have taken out of the budget, and they're put in that section called new positions and requests. We give you a little description of what the position is, the department that's requesting it, and then the associated costs. That way, as you're looking at a budget, you're seeing, if you may, what the budget takes to continue what we are currently doing. If you want to add to the budget, you can then look at those positions and say, all right, let's talk about what it would mean if we wanted to add another deputy sheriff or another county clerk or any of those positions. Some of the positions are recommended based on grant funding. There are some that are recommended and based on classification committee reviewing them. but there is a section specifically addressing new positions. There's also a capital budget. I know that is found on page 23. Thank you, Mark. On page 3, I talk a little bit about the capital budget and those requests that were made. You'll notice on then page 23, it outlines in more detail the request, what fund. We have a number of funds that we can pull from to support or pay for the particular projects. So it identifies the fund that I would recommend that we fund it out of, and then whether or not it's recommended, and that's over on the far right, for funding or not.
And just because something lands in the capital budget, like these expenditures for the jail, rather significant, that does not approve that expenditure correctly. It just allows the board to do that if it chose to do so at a later date.
That's correct. So, for example, if you were to be at the point where you were approving this budget, if you look on page 23 at the far right, it should, instead of saying approved, it should say recommended.
Okay.
So the items that are funded on the far right are being recommended for approval. You'll notice that those projects for the jail do not have any recommended amount there. Good question to help tie the document together, but also as it relates to the jail. It's not that those aren't necessarily important and necessary, it's that we're also on the heels of trying to balance, do we invest into the facility we have? I think the preference is that we're trying to replace that facility. So depending on where we go, those are items that right now are not being recommended for funding. Contingency. This budget does not include a contingency per se. We do have a fund balance. The audited fund balance at current is $2.3 million, or approximately 12% of general fund budgeted expenditures. They are uncommitted funds that the board could use. The only caution there is that as you utilize those, they're finite, if you may. You could only do that for so long before we would run out of those funds. Pension liabilities, I could spend a considerable amount of time, a session, if you may, just talking about pension liabilities. Talk just a little bit about that. We participate in the Municipal Employees Retirement System. We do not have, although I'll talk about OPEB shortly, but we have worked to pay down the unfunded accrued liability that we have. And we've done two things in the not so recent anymore. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, 2011 or 2012. We made some structural changes to our pension, moving from a defined benefit to a hybrid structure pension. And long-term, that will have a significant impact on the costs associated with our ongoing pension. In the shorter term, we have continued to transfer in, and this budget includes that, a transfer from the 100% tax payment fund of $500,000, which we then send to MERS as an additional payment. We have structured that right now, or in the past, up until now, as a payment that does not impact our overall calculation of our cost. So we set those funds aside in an interest-bearing account. They're invested through MERS just as if they were any other part of our pension assets. but they are in a separate account and until such time as we decide to transfer them into our existing accounts. And the purpose for that is that if we move those funds, and this is a strategy at some point the county or the board may want to consider, if we put those into each of the pension accounts, it will be baked or calculated into the cost that we pay each year and bring the cost of our pension down. Is a great thing, except that it then delays paying down that unfunded accrued liability longer. So right now, we've taken the position that we continue to pay both the additional amount and a higher normal cost, they call it, our annual operating cost to MERS for our pension, so that we can pay down that unfunded accrued liability, that if you made that debt faster. If the budgets ever got tight and the board needed to look, or the county needed to look at a way to reduce operating costs, transferring or deploying, if you may, those funds, and I think there's roughly about 12 million-ish right now in that surplus fund with MERS. Deploying those funds would have the impact of reducing then our normal cost. But I think the critical key is that we continue to etch away at that unfunded accrued liability. And if you look at our audit and our pension funding, depending on the market, has a significant impact on, at the time, we're in the low 80% funded. So other post-employment benefits, we do not have any other post-employment benefits. If you recall, we closed those and deployed the funds that we had to open healthcare savings accounts through MERS. So we're, if you may, a defined contribution style of post-employment benefits. Now, be happy to talk about the history of that if you'd like, but I think, again, the key to that is that we took that roughly $1 million legacy cost, and which we had funded, and turned that into a defined contribution style of healthcare benefit for retirees. Talk just briefly about our bond credit rating. We haven't recently had a need to do a credit rating review. I think our most current is maybe a year or two old, but it still stands true. We're a AA rated county. I'm very proud of where the rating is. I can also spend a session talking about what goes into that rating, and one of those is our strong liquidity that we have. As we talk about fund balances, they have, importance to the funds themselves and departments, but there are a couple of key: the 100% tax payment fund, the foreclosure fund, our general fund balance are very critical as our rating agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's, takes a look at our credit worthiness when we go out to borrow for large capital projects, drains. More recently, when we did the Thornapple Manor debt and some others, is critical. I'm proud of the fact that we're at a AA. We've maintained that AA rating for a number of years now. I would love to say that we could move beyond that. The reality is you move beyond that and you're at a AAA. That's the highest rating, and that's quite frankly reserved for the Kent counties, in our area anyways, of the world. We just don't have the economy, our own economy. We rely on, from a credit rating perspective, Kalamazoo, Kent County, and that's okay, but But we've maximized for being a county of our size. I think we've done really well to get to a AA rating. We keep pretty good company. So I appreciate all the support that the board and departments have provided. It's not something that necessarily is on top of mind to everyone. It is to me, and it's maybe more a sense of pride, but it certainly has big impact when we do some bonding projects. The American Rescue Plan Act. Let me go back to debt for a minute. I glossed over that only because it's a single sentence, that we no longer have any general funded primary government debt. The courts and law was the last debt that we had that was funded through the general fund. It doesn't mean that we don't have debt outstanding. We do have a number of debt funds. We can go over those later if you'd like. But we no longer have any debt supported by the general fund. The one that's maybe most familiar to the board is the medical care facility debt that's funded through a millage, and that's set to expire. This might be in 2024, I believe, is the last levy of that. It's about 0.65 mil, I believe. It varies just slightly depending on the taxable value. That will no longer be levied after, I believe, 2024. I talked a little bit about fund balances. We have a number of funds and their purposes. The American Rescue Plan Act funds, the board has committed of the roughly $11.95 million that we were awarded. The county has committed $6.81 million of those funds. So I'll be working on a budget amendment to look at the remainder of those funds. But right now, we've committed $6.8 million of those. I didn't bring, and I apologize, for anybody that's interested, I can get you a spreadsheet. I have to report that every quarter to the federal government, what we have spent at this point. The number that has been spent is far less than the 6.81 that's been committed. But we do have a couple of projects. Freeport, I think, is our project that is moved along, progressed the fastest. Of course, the Road Commission, their funding was for revenue replacement. So they purchased a grader, I think, with theirs. But from a project that had capital to it and infrastructure, it's Freeport that's progressed as quickly as any of them. I'll stop for just a minute and see if there's any questions about kind of the overview. I said I was going to move through this fairly quickly. I apologize, and I'm not yet to page 6. All right. So
I have
Sure,
a
sorry.
comment. I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not. Under the staffing request, back to that.
Yep.
Personally, I'd like to see that we fund that additional deputy clerk position. I think that there was, a number of months, there was rather compelling evidence that was brought before us of how far behind that office is in its filings and the additional tasks due to the elections and so forth that are going to fall on that. And with our clerk retiring, I think that it would be a good idea for us to beef up that office in order to prepare for the future here. It's one of maybe the most used office in the entire county, and is, it's central to everything that goes on here. I was going to mention, I don't know if this is appropriate time or not, but I had a meeting with the Southwest Behavioral Health yesterday, where they approved their budget for the SUD, substance abuse, and they, for the first time, have put in their budget a fairly sizable one-time allotment for our court system to cover primarily drug testing and some of the use of the specialty courts. And that amounts in excess of $400,000. It'd be available, provided that the courts don't receive funds from other grants that would take priority over this money. But as I say, it's a one-time use, and I'm thinking that that would help pad our budget enough that we could afford this additional position in the clerk's office, at least to get it started.
Can I make a quick cut? So I need to talk a little bit more with, I don't know if it would be Inez or Tammy, but I don't, we make some appropriation out of the general fund to the specialty courts. The question is, can we reduce that appropriation to offset or by the amount that we're getting? Certainly not going to be 400,000. And so I need to take a little bit of a look. The specialty courts, for the most part, are funded as a special revenue fund, so their funds don't flow through the general fund. Just a little bit of that does. I'd be happy to take a closer look at that.
Yeah, and I think it's only a small portion is actually going to the special courts. The vast majority of it was for drug testing, which is my understanding is going to, is enlarged dramatically since the sheriff office no longer does the drug testing for us.
So, yeah, I can try to do some research and understand how that affects the budget, and if that would, in essence, free up funds to then, because the request from the clerk's office would be a general funded commitment to see if that frees up. Okay. Got a note on that one. All right. Anything else on that?
No.
Okay. So, page 6 through pages 10 are purely informational. It talks about our organizational structure. If anybody's interested, it gives a rather quick and kind of high-level view of how county government is organized and what the different funds are. We continue, or I do anyways, talk about general fund and special revenue funds and debt service funds. And it helps explain a little bit about those. So I'm not going to spend any significant time on it. Again, it's informational. Pages 11 through 13 are the resolution that the board will adopt. When you adopt the budget, you actually will adopt a resolution, this resolution, Resolution 23-20, which is the resolution to adopt the 2024 Berry County budget and the General Appropriations Act. So as you look down through, it talks about the process a little bit. In the middle, it reaffirms, if you may, the millage rates that will be levied. If you'll recall, and again, Commissioner Tunison, when we met, asked some great questions and So if you recall, you recently adopted the L 4029. Mashia came up that sets that. So that's how this plays into where those numbers come from. Equalization Department does their work. They present then to you the L 4029, which establishes the legally permissible millage rates to be levied. You could choose, again in that discussion, to levy something less than that full amount, than those amounts, but you can't levy more than what those amounts are. It just has some boilerplate language in it that talks about a reasonable allocation of available resources to various departments. That has not been a subject of discussion recently. Back in 2008 through 2011, when the county was dealing with the effects of the housing crisis and whatnot, we had to make budget cuts. That was a subject of discussion that we are obligated, or you are obligated to fund elected officials at a reasonable level. The discussion becomes what is reasonable, right? There is no definition or exact to that. So we managed our way, I think, through that whole process very gracefully. I hope that as we all look back, elected officials who had to operate their departments and genuinely were advocating for funding that was appropriate to run their offices, and the county that was having to put together a budget that was sustainable, that we came to a resolution and have worked through time that I think everybody will say that it was not an easy process, but a graceful one. Again, I don't hear any debate, but it's still something that we leave in the budget that just reminds everyone that we are obligated and have a requirement to fund departments at a reasonable level. The arm wrestling sometimes comes when it's defining what reasonable is. We haven't had to do that in a long time. So we talk about that the budget is in accordance with the General Appropriations Act, which is, and the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, and this budget is. We grant authority to appointed boards and/or commissions to assign manage their assigned budgets as adopted herein. So you allow them to transit, Commission on Aging, Parks and Recreation, all of those other agencies that have boards, solid waste, to manage their budgets as we've established them. You don't require them to come back and have every expenditure approved by you. And that's been the practice for as many years as I can remember. You grant to the treasurer and I the authority to make transfers of funds that are included in this budget, up to the amounts that are included, and there are a number of transfers Mark just talked about. We fund a number of, or you do the child care fund and other funds so that we can make those transfers. You approve the position allocation list that's included in this budget on pages 25 and 26. The purpose of that is so that departments, everyone knows how many positions there are, and a department head or elected official can hire up to those levels. If they want to hire beyond that, they have to come to the board and get approval for additional staffing. Or in this resolution, you authorize the chairman to sign grants that are recurring child care fund and other grants that might come up at an odd time and then report that back to the board. Normally, we come to the board as whenever we can to get those approved, but if there's an urgency or a timing that's involved, the chairman of the board has the ability with regard to those funds or those grants to sign it and then come back to you and just report that this is what I've done. You probably can't remember too many instances of that because, again, we try not to do that, but sometimes it occurs. Mark had talked about on page 13 the Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health, the substance abuse funds. Those revenues come from the convention facility tax revenue, and we just acknowledge that we're going to use those funds in accordance with public law. It used to be 50%, it's now 40% of that revenue has to be forwarded on to SWIMBA, and the other 60% remains in the general fund. And then there's a couple of other minor. The Health and Safety Fund Act, we continue to leave that language in the resolution, although we have not received funding through the Health and Safety Act in many, many years. I'll stop real quick and ask if there's any questions about the budget resolution. Would you like me to go through the numbers in any detail? Let me do this real quickly. On page 14, is a general fund summary. On the top, you have the sources of funds and the total revenue. For 2024, the total revenue is proposed at $20,824,205. That's up from that's slightly down from the 2023 budget due to primarily the most recent budget amendment we had with the sale of the Algonquin property and the ARPA funds, the payments that were made for the one-time payments. The expenditures are balanced as well at $20,824,205. So we began the process with a deficit of just shy of $1.4 million. We were able to balance that for 2024. And then you'll see 25 and 26 are both projected at deficits at this point. That's not uncommon. That typically is the case as we work through the budget process. You then get into the detail relating to revenues, the detail relating to general fund expenditures. We've highlighted a little bit or talked about the capital budget, the staffing requests, approved positions, and then it finishes out pages 27 through 29 with just a summary of all budgeted funds. Something new, a little bit new to this year is then after that you have a number of spreadsheet pages that are the actual budget detail for all of the funds that we have on the expenditure side, not on the revenue side. So it gives you an opportunity, for example, if you wanted to, on page 21, you wanted to look at the top, county commissioners, for example, the budget is proposed at $266,899. if you go to page, what would be page, I guess, page 30, you'll see that at the top of that page, the detail for the commission, the line item detail of how that $266,899 has been budgeted for 2024. I'm happy to try to point to pages. I did not page number all of the additional pages, if I remember, but those are all in chronological order. So, for example, if you wanted to look at the Sheriff's Department, that's Fund 301, so up in the corner, instead of the Commissioners is 101, you just start your way down.
I commend you for putting that in the budget. I think it's very helpful to have this breakdown. I think that would also will please our auditor, that there is such a strong effort to make everything totally visible and transparent.
You're welcome. That it's a fine line between giving you too much, right? I get that. I mean, there's a point at which it's just information overload. So I'll stop for just a minute and see if there's any questions. There's nothing that.
I got a comment. Well, after I sat down with a man who loves numbers, my head was spinning a little bit, but I really appreciated the fact he took the time to go over it with me. And he put a lot of time and effort into it. I want to thank you for that. So,
You're welcome. The goal is that we have a budget that's certainly structural, that it will change. You saw that with the budget amendments that have occurred this year, and particularly with ARPA funds and some things going on. That makes my job a little more interesting to try to make sure everybody understands how that process moves throughout the year, and as we change, why it's changing. But the goal at this point is to make sure that the budget is structural, that what you are receiving and adopting is consistent with, and we genuinely believe that within reason will withstand the year. And I believe that this one will. That, again, doesn't mean that we're not going to have things thrown at us that will amend it. But there shouldn't be any surprises. There shouldn't be any concerns. And I feel very confident in the budget that's being presented before you, that it funds those departments. Not everybody's getting what they want. They never do. I think all of our departments, in a very genuine and honest way, believe in what they do and spend the money very efficiently and effectively. They're committed to what they do. And if there was more available, they would use those funds to do more of what they do. And I know there's a balance between, and that's not about big government and small government. That's just to do the best they can and provide the services they provide at the very best level they can. But they also know, and I believe there's a general collegiality amongst our county, that while you and I don't expect a department director, an elected official, to be more concerned about somebody else's department than they are theirs. I expect them to advocate for what they do. They're the subject expert. You do hope that they understand that it's part of a team, right? And I generally believe that exists, that people advocate for what they need and what they want so that they can provide the best service to our constituents. But I also think that, and I think you see that in the appeals process. I've tried to make that a very open process so that if there's a need, they feel comfortable to come make that advocacy and not feel like they're going to be penalized for it somehow. But I think generally there's a collegiality that people recognize. We're all part of a team, and it doesn't do any of us good to have one department really understaffed and another one really overstaffed. So I appreciate that as I've spent nearly 30 years here and in this business, everybody's efforts, kind of seeing the other side of the coin. I digressed, I apologize.
And I think it's a very clear and a very strong budget. I am in complete agreement with the vast majority of it. I would be in 100% agreement with it going forward if we restored or we provided funding for that additional deputy clerk position.
Is that one, I think since I've been a commissioner, there's been over $1 million in requests that have not been approved. Are those staffing requests, or is that a combination of staffing and capital requests?
It's a combination. A lot of it, that $1 million that you see, so if what you're pointing at is back on page 14, at the bottom there, a bit of that will come out of revenue as well. As departments make their requests, they're conservative. And I get that. Nobody wants to overestimate the revenue. And so it's as much an art as it is a science. And I'll push. I haven't for 24 and 25 yet. I mean, 25 and 26. When that budget time comes, then we certainly are a year further ahead. It's hard to project those out at that point, as folks are projecting them a year in advance. So I'll push those based on historical levels and whatnot. So that brings some of that $1 million, if you may, down, and then some of it's cutting out new requests. Staffing, let me see on page, right here, 24. So on page 24, there's a deputy sheriff position that's requested, about $100,000. That's not recommended due to funding. That county clerk position at just shy of $80,000. And again, these are including benefits and associated costs. It's not just the wage. That's the one that Commissioner Doster is speaking of at this point. It's not recommended due to funding. Animal shelter had a couple of part-time positions. There was, in the sheet that was not included, if I can put my finger on that. There was then a position in administration, just shy of $87,000. So you've got, probably $300,000, $400,000. I don't know if my math's if that's quite that much in positions. Honestly, I could try to do that math and figure out where it all comes from, but I've never actually put pen to paper to figure out, as we balance this thing out, exactly where it comes from.
Nope, I agree with Commissioner Doster. It's very thorough. It's very open. It's a lot of information and overload, and you can certainly go to sleep reading it at night with all the detail and the stuff. But the introductory page kind of does a very nice job spelling it out for someone who's a novice on reading budgets that wants to see where the county's involved, what funding is going on with it. So I appreciate you and your staff and the time it takes to do this, because I know it's as we finish this one, you'll be starting on next year, so, you know. So,
It,
additional questions for Michael? Commissioner Getty?
On page 21, the non-mandated service level required down on miscellaneous. That's a sizable chunk. Can you
it is when I.
clarify miscellaneous?
I'm dating myself, but when I came and I saw a budget that was miscellaneous, and it certainly wasn't that large at that time, but it's all sort of relative, right? I think when I started, the total general fund was 10 or 11 million, maybe 9 million now. So it's all relative. I said the same thing. I said, miscellaneous, how do you have a, and actually that's one of the, from the parts that I manage of the, after I put the budget together, it's one of the more important areas. So unfortunately, I did not page number the expenditure detail, but if you can look up in the right corner, you'll see the expenditure detail starts with Fund 101, Commissioners. If you start your way through, you'll see that's in chronological order, making its way to 151, 175. If you get your way down to Fund 299, it's probably 10 pages in. Happen to find it?
Yep, I'm there.
Okay.
Miscellaneous.
Yep, there you go. So you'll see that we pay, out of that, a few per diems are paid. Those are for the plat board, if I remember right. $500 is there. We budget for Xerox supplies and maintenance, so all of our Xerox supplies and maintenance for departments are paid out of that, instead of trying to budget them out of, a little bit out of all the departments. We have a contractual services line item, and that is for Walker, Fluke, and Sheldon. We contract with Walker, Fluke, and Sheldon to do pre-audit work. We've done that for, 10 years now. GASB changed the rules, tightened up what auditors could actually do, and because we don't have an accountant on staff, instead of hiring an accountant, we found it more competitive to spend, we budget $45,000 for them to do that work for us throughout the year. The cost allocation report, MGT prepares a cost allocation report. That's the report that we use to assign internal costs for grant programs. So it allows us to charge to our grant programs, those that we can anyways, the costs of conducting payroll, maintaining heat and such in buildings, the cost of the treasurer's office, cost of building and grounds. Those things that aren't directly attributable, we pay, for example, all of building and grounds is budgeted out of a budget, not out of everybody's budget. So the cost allocation plan calculates the amount of that budget, of those costs attributable to each department, and then we can charge those back to grants. The accounting services is for Walker, Fluke, and Sheldon. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot. The contractual services line item. Do you remember what? I have to look at that one. It's not,
Part of that has been that we, used that for our separate OPEB valuation.
okay. When we had to conduct, thank you. So going back then to the contractual services, we've had to prepare OPEB valuations through GASB. So we use those funds. That has funded the preparing, if you may, it's an audit type of a document, but separate from the audit. Below accounting services are our auditing services. Just that's the cost associated with our conducting our annual audit. We have an EAP program, Employee Assistance Program. We contract through Pine Rest to provide that service, fund that at about $3,500 a year. We have a flexible spending and COBRA. So all organizations that provide health insurance have to have COBRA. Somebody needs to administer that COBRA, so that contract comes out of that miscellaneous account. When we conduct pre-employment physicals for any of the departments that hire folks, we pay for those out of that budget. We do have within that then some miscellaneous expenses that come out. If there's just a variety of, you can see we don't spend that much, but unforeseen expenditures that might not be budgeted somewhere else, we capture. And then the largest piece of that are the county expense of drains. So when a drain district has an assessment, the county gets a portion of that, and it's associated with the roads primarily. As long as I've been here, the county has always picked up that piece of the assessment. It's not that we own any property, if you may, and are assessed like a typical property owner would be to a drain. But if you take a drainage district, there are roads on that, and that has a runoff that there's a calculation, a standard calculation that's applied. We get that cost, we just don't pass that back on to the road commission. The county has picked that up over the years. And that's nearly $150,000 of that almost $300,000 budget.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Additional questions for Michael? Michael, thank you again for the detail and the time, the workshop, going through all that. And commissioners, I encourage you, if you have detailed questions on any part of the budget, to set up a time with Michael to go through those and really review them so it's understandable. When is the public hearing on the budget?
So the public hearing would occur October, the last board meeting in October, which I think is the 23rd.
Okay.
And so ideally, we would, in early October, we'd put an advertisement in the newspaper. We'd put this on our website and make it available for public inspection. I'll do some research on Mark's question. What would you, do you want me to see what I can find out and bring that back? Because the board will then, I guess there's a couple things that you could do. You could certainly say that we're ready to recommend this budget on to a budget hearing. You could have me research Commissioner Doster's question, come back and say, all right, if that were to be included, here's how you would need to go about that. More likely than not, you'd need to dip into fund balance, depending on, again, the question of how much of those funds could be used to offset the general fund. But at some point, we do need to get to where you as a body make a recommendation to establish a public hearing and adopt the budget.
I think it'd be fine to look into that and see if are any details we can use with that. Maybe bring those back under county administrator's report, just to give us an update on where those are at. It's kind of an interesting time because with the announcement this morning that there is a formal transition to a new clerk at some place, we will miss Pam. Cindy may have a different feeling, opinion, or ideas on where that department needs to go, so I'm a little hesitant to make a recommendation without having Cindy in place to see what her needs are and what her evaluation is. And sometimes that takes a few months to get your feet in there and see what's going on, so, but all good information. If the money's there, it's certainly an opportunity, so.
And then I'll just lastly offer again, if anybody has any questions, would like to sit down and go through anything, feel free to just shoot me an email, give me a call, stop in.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Sherry Babcock, Johnstown Township Clerk. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Pam Palmer for all the years of working together. She's been an awesome clerk. I also stand behind you guys' consideration for an additional deputy. We have unprecedented changes to our election process that I know on the local level, we have tons more work, and I know that we need that support from our county to get through these election changes. I'm very happy that you found a replacement for her, that we can get that in place before we are under the presidential primary. And I hope that you will consider looking at getting the enforcement officer position filled also, because we are missing that in our township. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Additional public comment?
Gary White, Castleton. I guess I heard about the ARPA funds where the road commission used to buy equipment there for, I do believe there was $100,000 that I think went to blue zones. Was there any accounting on how those funds were spent? At this point in time, I did not hear that. There's also, I guess I just hear this all way too often that, oh, looking at numbers and looking at a budget, just way to put yourself to sleep. Well, if you're going to sleep when you're looking at finances, are you doing your job? There's needs and wants, as we heard. I guess county administrator does a good job. He does what you folks want him to do, tell him to do. As a person that served as village president in charge of a budget, I didn't take it lightly. I'm glad to hear that at least one commissioner went down and got on board with what's going on. But at the same time, if you ask the county administrator, say, hey, how do you cut 1%, 2%, 3%? Last week I heard, well, your taxes aren't going up. I'm going to bet money that when I get my tax bill, what I paid last year as compared to what I pay this year, I'm going to see an increase. That's what I was saying about the millage rate. You have the opportunity to move that down. Most of you folks run under, you folks run underneath being Republican, which says less government, less taxes. At this point in time, we don't really see that. At least I don't as residents. Once again, department heads are passionate. The people you heard here today on solar and alternative energy or experimental energy are passionate. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. The best defense is a good offense, correct? Do you have ideas? That's my thought is you're going to get something back from an attorney saying, well, it looks like this is the best thing to do. It's amazing how many ideas you can get from people that may change the mind of that attorney or may change the attitude or how the direction. But not looking at that and not getting input, how we do this is probably extremely important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Additional public comment?
Jamie Lewis Hedges, Executive Director of Berry Conservation District. Won't take much of your time. I just wanted to be here to voice appreciation to Michael Brown and to you for the portion of that budget that includes the Conservation District. We're eager and dedicated to bringing solutions to local landowners for conserving our natural resources, and thrilled to be a part of that process and in support to the community of Berry County.
Awesome.
Fred Flower, Hope Township. I am the board chair of the Conservation District. Been on the district now for, this is my second term, so I'm wrapping up about 8 years. I just want to thank the board for the support in the past, and that we are very passionate, as we have a new executive director now. And I went through many years with our previous director, which you probably all know, who was very, very good at her job. We've been through a lot through the COVID era and all the bad times where we're trying to get things done. When we lost our other executive director to a new position, which is good, she moved on. It was a big concern for me where we're going to go as a district. Our board did a great job looking at the prospects. We came up with another good director. I think we're going to go out. He's sitting here, so you know. But I'm very excited the direction that we are going with the district now. So again, we just want to thank you for your support in the past, and love this county. I'm a transplant, but my roots are from here. My grandparents both were from Berry County, and I retired and moved back. So I understand, you know, what a beautiful place we have here. And again, just thank you for your support.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Mr.
Fred.
Chair.
Thank you, Jamie.
I just had one little.
Yes.
Jamie, could you mention about sending Ben to Gun Plains Township over the gypsy moth?
Yes, that's correct. So our forester that was here last time we visited, speaking about the gypsy moth outbreak, is going to be speaking at the Gun Lake Township, Gun Plains, sorry, Township, sharing those resources with them as well. We were discussing this, that there's really tight window when landowners can do something about that outbreak at the beginning of the year in the spring. And so getting that information out to our community ahead of time so that they can take action during that window is the best way for us to lean into preventing that next year.
Awesome. Thank you. Additional public comment? Going once? Commissioner comments. Commissioner Tunison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding everybody that came today to speak about the solar farms, I want to thank everybody for coming. I grew up on a family farm, and my passion towards farming is I really had a great childhood. I own part of that farm now, and every time I drive up there, I think about all the times I was out there with my mom and dad and stuff. So it means a lot to me, and to try to protect the generational farms who want to keep their land. As far as you know, what we can do about it is we're just going to have to take a look at with Mr. McManus and try to really look at it hard about what's all involved here with the, as far as how much of the land is really farmable versus the total land. I think that's a big thing we need to look at. And the percentage-wise, like you go down to Johnstown Township, you take 1,600 acres out of that township, that's a lot larger than a 5%. I don't really know, Commissioner Campbell can address that, but we need to kind of try to keep this not just one township is going to gobble up here. So that's my thought on it. So.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
First, thank you so much for all of the familiar faces I see here from the townships I represent. This is what has to be done. Voices need to be heard. As far as the solar fields, I don't like solar fields. I have the honor of, I go to 4 townships. I drive by beautiful cornfields, cattle in the field, orchards. It's the things that make our county what it is, what we've always been. I know Mr. McManus so very well, and I know that for not doing anything, if we do nothing, the results will be a lot worse than if we actually enact a plan to control this onslaught of solar fields, which I feel are coming. And I feel my 4 townships are going to take the brunt of this. I don't agree with page 105 and the master agreement. It's a beautiful agreement. This is a beautiful book that's had many, many hours of great, great thought and work put into it. But when we say 3 to 5%, that don't sound too bad. But when we change it to 15,000 acres, that's what sounds bad. And that's what we're doing. All right, so we do that. Now, what protects my townships from not taking the brunt of that? We know where the prime area is for solar fields. Johnstown has already gave up 6.849% with the Halbert farm. So the 3.5 means nothing to our townships because we are not protected. This manual right here should have done something. When we talk about solar limits, it should have been done in an impartial way of protecting each individual township, not having to take the brunt of this slot of solar that's coming. I just want everybody to think about it. It's going to come. It's going to happen. We have to control it. But more than controlling the front end of it, what are we going to control on the back end of it? They've already told us that 25 years is maximum life on these things. What about the here after that? 25 years is a blink. And then we're left with land that's destroyed. There's no plan of replacing to the natural source, which we all know that's impossible. It'll never be what it was. So as we proceed and go through this task of solar, please keep in mind that we need to come up with something that is fair to all townships, especially the ones that are prime candidates for this. That's all I have.
Commissioner Hatfield.
I have nothing to add other than my appreciation for the comments that were made by both of you. As a member of the Planning Commission, I cannot imagine a more daunting task than effectively figuring out how we're going to regulate not only solar, but also wind and also mining activities. It's here. We've got to address it. We've got to find the right way to deal with it. Your comments are important, but it's also important that we maintain a civil discourse as we go through this process so everybody can be heard and their voices impact in some fashion the final product.
Thank you. Commissioner Doster?
I think I'll change the subject off of that, perhaps. I'm getting a lot of inquiries regarding wake boats on the lakes. These are boats that are enhanced with, they're weighted down with additional water so that they go very low in the water, and they create a wave, and people have fun surfing behind them and so forth. Two lakes in particular, Pine Lake and Gun Lake, it seems to be having some consequences. From the literature that is being disseminated, it appears that these wake boats can stir up the bottom 33 feet below. And a lot of these lakes are treated for, like, Eurasian milfoil and other invasive species that are fragmentary. So every little piece then grows and then has to be treated. And also there are a number of chemicals over the years that have settled to the bottoms of these lakes that we don't want to disturb. You know, they're fine where they're at, but if they're and there's problems with shorelines, eroding them, and docks, and the people who use these lakes. I've heard anecdotal stories of seeing rafts picked up and put on top of people's docks, and also capsizing kayaks. Anyways, from what I can see, Michigan, currently there aren't any local townships or counties that regulate this, but it's coming. A number of the states around us are already getting deep into this. I think that with the help of the DEQ, who regulates the lakes, that local entities can regulate this. There's going to be a meeting regarding this on the Gun Lake Improvement Board, which I sit on, that the county appointed me to here this Thursday at 6:30 at Orangeville Township Hall, and that's the primary thing on the agenda. So we're looking into seeing whether this can be regulated and help protect the environment.
Thank you. Commissioner Galton.
Back to the solar panels.
Yeah.
So before we approved the master plan, I did talk to Jim McManus about why 3 to 5%. It seems squishy, and I still don't really understand why. I think I would rather see it down at 3%. Not sure. I've never done a budget where it has a range like that. Another thought, and I'm not sure, do we have to go back and amend the master plan, or really where the rubber meets the road in the ordinance, is that where it can be discussed more? But it talks about 3 to 5% total surface area. That includes lakes and stuff. And then when you even break it down further to actual land, break it down further to actual farmland, that's a huge number, way beyond 3 to 5% of what we'll be losing in terms of farmland. So I think we need to either look back or look forward. Are we going back to the master plan, going forward to the ordinance to discuss that? And Bruce brings up, it's huge, that each of our townships comprises 6.25% of the county's total land. And if we're giving 3 to 5% of the county's total land to solar panels, I could see where his area is prime for that, and it could, be half eaten up, even more, by this, because it is more the prime land for it. So I think we need more discussion on that.
Awesome. Commissioner Getty.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, where the rubber meets the road is the ordinance, and the standards developed within the ordinance. I'm grateful that Consumers Power didn't come in and plow through under essential services. I think that shows their willingness to mitigate the impacts on residents. So, I think everybody should participate in that ordinance discussion and drafting and provide public input. There'll be things like buffer strips and berms, setbacks, remediation. After if a solar farm is closed, then what does that remediation look like? The ordinance will address every single one of those items And so I think that that's, should be the focus.
Very good. Commissioner Smelker?
I agree with most everything that's been said. I think that it should be no more than 3%, if that. I think we have to take in consideration that these solar panels go on prime farm ground, tillable acres. So it should be, the percentage should be figured on tillable acres and per township. There shouldn't any part of Berry County be hindered with the whole thing. So I do believe the ordinance is the place where the argument is gonna start.
Thank you. And just to piggyback on all those comments, I would say, Commissioners, save your notes from today. This is not going away. This is going to be something you're going to be hearing about a lot more in the future. 2-3 years ago, we were talking about nothing but high water and drains. So you've all had to become experts on things that you never thought you'd ever have to learn about again. So now you're going to become experts on solar and alternative energy sources. So I would just encourage you to review your notes from today from all of our passionate speakers talking about their concerns, because we need to help shape the ordinance. After the ordinance is put together by an attorney and passed is the wrong time for us to get involved in it. So we're going to have a voice in this. If you want to shape this, you're going to have to take your notes and have a voice in this prior. I would only add to that, some of you are aware right now, there's a proposal in Lansing to take over all the regulation for the state. That Lansing wants to basically say, hey, don't worry about it on a local level. We'll decide who gets solar farms, who doesn't get them, where they go and when. So I would really encourage everybody to make sure you contact your state reps and let them know that you are opposed to us losing local control and having a voice in what happens in Berry County. Because they've been trying to push through the same thing with gravel mines. Now they're trying to do it with other things. So I think we need to be sure that our voice is heard in Lansing through our reps, that they know that we are not supporting a state takeover of decisions made locally and what happens with our farmland. So, I appreciate your attendance. It was a long meeting, but that was very informative. I appreciate everybody who showed up to support this and have your voices heard today. So thank you for our township officials, Barb and Sherry, for coming as well. So everybody be safe, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.